For reasons I personally don't understand, SUVs are aspirational vehicles for most Filipinos. But let's face it, when it comes to like practicality in terms of price, MPVs make the best choice. And so companies such as Mitsubishi came up with the Expander and its SUV-fied version, the Expander Cross. But since Hyundai wanted a piece of this cake too, well, they came out with this. This is the 2024 Hyundai Stargazer X, and it is basically a Stargazer that's made to look like an SUV. For the sake of this video, since the Stargazer X is pretty similar to the regular Stargazer, I'm gonna go a little bit less in-depth in here. If you want a little bit more in-depth tour of the Stargazer, you can just click up here for my other video. So what exactly is different with the Stargazer X? Well, let's look at it from the front. Starting off with the hood, there's a couple of bulges on it versus just a plain smooth hood. As with the regular Stargazer, you still have this nice like light bar over at the front. You still have the same blocky headlamps down below. You have a slightly different bumper and a massively different grille as well. The grille is also a little bit blockier. Now on the side, what you'll notice here is that the Stargazer X is just a little bit taller. 200 millimeters of ground clearance to be exact versus 185 millimeters of ground clearance for the regular Stargazer. This means that you have an additional of 50 millimeters, and that may be small, but when it comes to some rocks that you may want to go to with your SUV looking MPV, that may make all the difference. Over at the top, they gave you roof rails, although I'm not too sure if you can actually use these or if they are just for cosmetic purposes. They look pretty thin. You have a different set of rims, but still 17 inches big, just like the Stargazer GLS. You also get some over fenders for some extra rugged appeal, as well as extra side skirts too on the bottom. The rear end gets the same minor changes, mostly just, everything cosmetic. So you have the spoiler on the top, that's a little bit more aggressive, it's a little bit longer to compare to the regular one, and you also have a slightly more aggressive bumper down below. Everything else is exactly the same. Now, for your space here at the back, as you can see, the people at Hyundai accidentally left a helmet over here, so this is perfect to demonstrate the space over here. So you can fit one helmet here at the back with the third row seats up. If you need extra space, you can easily just fold down these third row seats, and they split in a 50-50 split. With them folded down, the space here is not bad at all. Engine-wise, it is also exactly the same, no surprise there. What you still have here is a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated gasoline engine, making 115 horsepower and 144 newton meters of torque, paired to an IVT. What that basically means is that it's a CVT that's tuned a little bit better. In fact, it's one of the best CVTs in the market. And fuel economy-wise, it still is pretty impressive, even though they added some bits and pieces right here, which adds, just a tiny bit of weight. You're returning around 9.8 kilometers per liter inside the city and 20.1 kilometers per liter on the highway. Now for the interior, as usual, we check the door first. Okay, not bad. So inside here, changes are honestly pretty minimal as well. The only major difference that they gave you here is these piano black accents, because the previous, the regular Stargazer had a bunch of like plastic looking gray bezels, which look kind of dated. And that's the same thing for this AC system control panel. Unfortunately, it still is this rudimentary analog style knobs. I wish they gave you something digital just to up the experience a little bit, but yeah, at least it is also covered in a lot of piano black. Also, if you'll notice, you now lose out on the traditional handbrake. What you get instead is an electronic parking brake with an auto hold function. You also get the addition of red stitching on your seats and on your doors, but that's about it. Everything else is the same. As with the Stargazer, you still have a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, which really does go really far back. I also still maintain that this is probably the best and the most adjustable steering column in terms of reach in almost any car I've ever driven. Your screens here still include the center touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Oddly though, it doesn't come with a wired function for Apple CarPlay. So you know how wireless Apple CarPlay tends to be buggy? Well, yeah, that's sad. You can't use the wireless function. This also comes with a reverse camera, which although is clear, it's a little bit wonky in terms of like the perspective of it. So I don't want to rely too much on it. Next thing, your instrument cluster It's only like partly digital. There is a small screen by the center. Then on the two sides, there's just, digital digits over there, but not really a screen. The seats are also still pretty comfortable, although the thigh support is still a little bit too high, just like the regular Stargazer. But this is about it, and overall it's a pretty good interior for its class. Cubby spaces excellent too, so much all around here, including this one. You also have big jug holders on the doors. You have two more cup holders here by the center, and your regular glove box. Finally, you also get a wireless charging pad. So for the second row seats, we also check the door once again, and as with the front, that is not bad. Now, as with the regular Stargazer, space here is truly excellent. Legroom is not a problem. Headroom, definitely not a problem. I have so much headroom over here. You still get blowers for your AC. And my favorite part about this is you get a tray table, at least here on the passenger side, which is a perfect place to have a picnic with your Wang Lao tea, sweet tea, and my favorite, Henlin. This is not sponsored by Henlin, by the way, but I would love for it to be. Now let's head on over to the third row, which oddly, since this was probably designed as a right-hand drive vehicle at first, you kind of have to do it from this side. I mean, you can do it from that side too, but you would have to fold down two of those seats. And when you are here over at the back, space is actually pretty good. Let me just fold this down for you too. With this seat up, I have like 2 or 3 or even 4 inches of legroom. This is with these seats slid all the way back, which makes it even better compared to a lot of larger 7-seater SUVs. So in terms of carrying 7 people in a car, the Stargazer is an excellent choice. It's an excellent choice. So now we drive the Hyundai Stargazer X, and I wouldn't go too much in detail as well for the driving segment because it drives pretty similarly, if not exactly similarly, as the Hyundai Stargazer GLS. So again, you can just click up here to see my more in-depth thoughts on it, but I'll just give you a quick run through. And let's start off with the power. Power in this car is definitely more than enough. It's enough to get you up to speed, not quickly, but eventually. And when you are on the highway, it can easily stay at highway speeds. It does take a little while though, but yeah, you will get there eventually, and it can easily hold itself. The transmission is pretty impressive. This is the IVT, the glorified version of a CVT, and it can easily pick a gear for you or a simulated gear, and it doesn't feel too unnatural. It doesn't rubber band too much. It's one of the more automatic transmission feeling CVTs in the market. Now, you do have to put it in smart mode to be able to make it, well, smart as well as pretty smooth, because keeping it in like eco mode makes it a little bit slow. Putting it into sport mode makes it a little bit jerky. So just leave it in the smart mode. Noise, vibration, and harshness wise, it's generally quiet in here for its class. And what's pretty impressive is its harshness suppression, because you barely feel anything in here. I said about the Stargazer GLS that it feels like a more wallowy sedan, and yes, that is still the case here with the Stargazer X. Even though you have 15 millimeters of extra ground clearance, it doesn't really take away from the comfort in here. Next up would be the steering. The steering is also really light, so it is pretty excellent to drive around in the city. You don't feel like you're driving a big car such as this one. And for visibility, just like the Stargazer GLS, it's a little bit limited because the pillars in this car, they are pretty thick. So you do have to kind of move your head around once in a while. What is pretty impressive though is the advanced driver assistance systems, because you don't really expect much of it in this class of vehicles, with the exception of the Honda BRV VX, which costs a lot of money. This one, for how much it is and for what you're getting, you even get like an auto steering function on the highway. So while it doesn't have adaptive cruise control, this is already pretty good. Additionally, you also get rear cross traffic alert, you get a blind spot monitoring system, and a pre-collision avoidance warning system. Not bad overall. So the Stargazer X honestly isn't really too different from a regular Stargazer, but for those people who's looking for some extra zing to the aesthetics of their vehicle to make it look a little bit more macho, a little bit sportier, and who prefer the extra modernity of an electronic parking brake, of an auto hold function, and maybe with the extra bits of piano black too on the inside, then this car could be an option for you. But now the question is, how much does it cost? Honestly, not that much more compared to a regular Stargazer GLS either. You can now get this car for 1,348,000 pesos. And even at that price, I still maintain that the Stargazer X, or the Stargazer in general, is probably one of the best, if not the best, MPV in its class.